When a being who sees all time meets a universe drowning in despair, reality itself trembles. The golden walls of terror reflect in his empty eyes as ancient gods turn their gaze upon him. Neither chaos nor order can comprehend a mind that exists beyond their endless war. What happens when a man who became a god enters a galaxy where gods become men? A flash of cerulean light tore through reality itself. It was neither the sickly green of Necron technology nor the corrupt purple of warp sorcery. This was something else, something impossible. The flash appeared without warning in the heart of the Imperial Palace on Holy Terror, mere kilometers from the Golden Throne itself. Ancient void shields and psychic wards maintained by the most devoted servants of the Omnisia for 10,000 years registered nothing until the moment of breach. No alarm, no warning, simply a localized failure of physical law. In the wake of this impossible light stood a figure, humanoid, male, hairless, nude, his skin the color of a clear terror sky that had not been seen in millennia, glowing with internal radiance, hovering several centimeters above the polished adamantine floor. The figure observed his surroundings with an expression of mild curiosity, untroubled by the dozen custodian guards who materialized with guardian spears leveled at his heart. "Designation speak," demanded Shield Captain Heraclean Titus, his voice amplified by his Helm's Vox caster to thunderous proportions. The intruder did not flinch, did not blink. The custodian repeated his demand. "Identify yourself, intruder, or be destroyed." The blue figure turned slowly. His eyes were white voids, devoid of pupil or iris, yet seeing everything. "I am called Dr. Manhattan," he replied, his voice calm and dispassionate, like a scientist recording observations. Though that name has little meaning now. Before Titus could respond, a wave of psychic force slammed into the chamber with the weight of a collapsing star. Every custodian dropped to one knee, their transhuman physiology barely keeping them conscious. Even the blue intruder seemed to notice, turning his gaze upward toward the heart of the Imperial Palace, where the Master of Mankind had sat upon the Golden Throne for 10,000 years. "Interesting," Dr. Manhattan said, his voice unchanged despite the crushing psychic pressure. "There is a mind here. Ancient, powerful, fragmented, yet coherent. It sees me." The pressure intensified. Blood vessels burst in the eyes of two younger custodians. Their enhanced healing immediately clotted the hemorrhages, but the message was clear. The Emperor was aware, and he was concerned. "You perceive me as a threat," Dr. Manhattan continued, apparently addressing the absent Emperor directly. "I understand in this universe that which is unknown is invariably dangerous. But I am not here to harm. I am simply here." With those words, the crushing pressure vanished. The custodians rose to their feet, guardian spears still trained on the blue figure, but now uncertain. Their connection to the Emperor was tenuous at best, but all felt the change. Not acceptance, not welcome, but a temporary stay of execution. Captain Titus removed his helm, revealing a face lined with 10 centuries of service, his eyes hard as flint. "The Emperor will speak with you through his appointed representatives. You will come with us." Dr. Manhattan inclined his head slightly. "Yes, I am curious about this Emperor. I perceive him as both alive and dead, present yet elsewhere. A quantum superposition made flesh." The custodians exchanged glances. Such talk skirted dangerously close to heresy, but the intruder had appeared inside the palace itself, bypassing defenses that had repelled the most powerful servants of chaos, and the Emperor had not immediately demanded his destruction. "Follow," Titus commanded, turning toward the vast doors of polished auramite. "Of course," Manhattan replied, hovering forward without walking. "Though I should warn you, I can see the tangled threads of what you call the immaterium pressing against reality here. Your Emperor maintains this barrier at terrible cost." Titus froze, then slowly turned. "You speak of matters beyond your understanding, intruder." "No," Manhattan replied simply. "I do not." The journey through the inner palace was one few mortals would ever witness. Halls of such grandeur that planets had been stripped of resources to construct them. Murals depicting the Emperor and his primarchs during the Great Crusade, each the size of a battle cruiser. Ancient technologies maintained by thousands of tech priests who spent their entire lives ensuring that a single door functioned perfectly. Manhattan observed it all with the same detached curiosity. Your civilization builds monuments to permanence, he observed as they passed through a hall lined with statues of fallen imperial heroes, each carved from a single massive diamond. Yet everything I see is decaying entropy masked by ritual. A custodian named Valerian, younger than Titus by several centuries, found himself responding despite his training. We preserve what was. For without memory, what are we? Manhattan turned his blank gaze upon the Golden Warrior. Memory is a curious thing. In my perception, past, present, and future exist simultaneously. Your Emperor understands this. I think he sees possibilities, threads of potential. Before Valerian could respond, they arrived at their destination. Not the throne room itself. No outsider could be permitted there, but a chamber adjacent used only for the most critical communications with the master of mankind, the Sanctum Imperialis Vox. Here, psychic tech adepts known as the Emperor's Voice maintained a tenuous connection to the throne, interpreting the fragmentary will of their god into concrete commands. As the massive doors swung open on silent hinges, Manhattan paused. There are others here, not physically, but their attention is fixed upon this place. Titus stiffened. Explain. For entities, vast, hungry, watching through a veil between dimensions. They see me as clearly as I see them. They are curious. Manhattan's expression remained unchanged, but a subtle blue glow began to emanate from the atomic structure of his body. They believe I am like them. They are mistaken. Inside the chamber, a dozen robed figures turned simultaneously toward the entrance, their faces concealed by golden masks molded in the likeness of the Emperor. Their voices spoke in unison, a sound like grinding mountains. The anomaly approaches. The intruder exists, yet should not. Quantum entanglement detected. Warp presence negative. Paradox. Manhattan floated forward into the center of the circular chamber as the custodians formed a perimeter around him. You speak for your Emperor. I would hear his thoughts directly. The masked figures consulted among themselves in hurried whispers, then turned back toward Manhattan. Impossible. The master of mankind speaks only through his chosen vessels. To commune directly would destroy your consciousness. I doubt that, Manhattan replied. He raised his hand slightly, and a complex pattern of glowing blue particles appeared around it, orbiting like electrons around a nucleus. In my original universe, I alone remained when the stars grew cold. I witnessed the death of the final proton. I doubt your Emperor can destroy me when entropy itself failed. The masks betrayed no emotion, but the tension in the chamber increased palpably. One of the voices stepped forward. You claim to be a god. For the first time, Manhattan's expression changed slightly. A faint furrow appeared in his brow. No, gods require belief. I simply am. At that moment, a psychic shock wave rippled through the chamber. Not crushing like before, but precise. Targeted. Manhattan stood motionless, as invisible tendrils of the Emperor's will probed and analyzed his atomic structure. The voices clutched their heads, golden masks amplifying their screams as information flooded through them at a rate their minds could barely process. Negative warp signature confirmed. Atomic manipulation confirmed. Temporal perception confirmed. The voices were speaking in ragged gasps now, blood trickling from beneath their masks. The anomaly is beyond classification. Manhattan turned to Titus. Your Emperor is dying. Has been dying for 10,000 years. A complex psychic apparatus converts the souls of your species into energy to maintain his existence. 1,000 souls per day, 365,000 per year, 3,650,000,000 in the past 10 millennia. Yet it is insufficient. The entropy curve cannot be overcome. Titus raised his guardian spear. You speak heresy. I speak truth. There is no functional difference between your Emperor and the entities you call chaos gods. Both feed on psychic energy. That distinction is merely one of method and consent. The accusation hung in the air like a physical thing. The custodians stood frozen, torn between their duty to destroy any who blasphemed against the Emperor and their orders to escort this being. Manhattan seemed unconcerned by their dilemma. "Your Emperor is reaching out to me again," he observed more cautiously this time. "He recognizes that I am not of this universe. My quantum structure does not conform to your physical laws." Intriguing. One of the voices stepped forward, this one taller than the rest. When it spoke, its voice was steadier. "The Emperor wishes to know how you came to be here." Manhattan considered this an accident. "I believe in my universe. I chose to leave for another galaxy to create life. But something intercepted me. What you call the Imperium, a dimension of psychic energy that exists alongside physical reality. My passage through it were unplanned. Clarify the nature of your powers. I perceive and can manipulate matter at the subatomic level. I experience time non-linearly. I can restructure my physical form, create duplicates, teleport, and generate energy." Manhattan stated these facts without pride or boast, simply listing attributes as a scribe might inventory supplies. "In my universe, these abilities were unique. Here I sense they are not without parallel, though the underlying mechanism differs." The voices conferred again, then spoke. "The Emperor requires proof of your claims." Manhattan nodded slightly. "Very well." Without warning, he dissipated into a blue mist, atomizing his form. The custodians reacted instantly, guardian spears humming with activated power fields. But before they could move, the blue mist reformed, not into one Dr. Manhattan, but a dozen identical copies arranged in a perfect circle around the chamber. "I can divide my consciousness and attention as needed," all 12 Manhattan said in perfect unison. They then spoke individually, each voice slightly offset from the others to create an echoing effect. "I can observe the past and the present and futures of varying probability. I see the construction of this palace, the great betrayal you call the heresy, the entombment of your Emperor, the slow decay of his physical form, the growth of the Astronomicon, the souls it has consumed, the civilization's sacrifice to maintain it, the alternatives never pursued, the salvation never sought." As suddenly as they had appeared, 11 of the copies vanished, leaving only the original. "Is this sufficient demonstration?" The voices were silent for a long moment. When they finally spoke, it was with a new tone, weary, respectful, perhaps even fearful. "The Emperor acknowledges your nature, Dr. Manhattan, and asks your purpose here." "Purpose?" Manhattan repeated as if the concept were novel. "I have none. I did not choose this universe. But now that I am here, I will observe, learn, perhaps intervene if it seems appropriate." "Intervene how?" "That depends on what I discover." Manhattan turned away from the voices, gazing around the chamber as if seeing through its walls to the galaxy beyond. "Your Imperium is vast. Millions of worlds, trillions of souls. Yet it is a civilization in terminal decline, consuming itself to postpone inevitable collapse. Perhaps there is a more efficient solution to your Emperor's condition." At this, the chamber went deathly still. Even the custodians seemed to hold their breath. To suggest altering the Emperor's condition was either the highest blasphemy or a miracle beyond imagining. The tallest voice stepped forward once more. "You believe you could heal the Emperor?" "I do not know," Manhattan replied honestly. "His condition is complex. Physical death held in abeyance by psychic energy. Soul fragmentation as a defense mechanism against the entities of the Imperium. Quantum entanglement with your entire species. But given time to study problem, I might devise an approach." Hope and suspicion wore on the faces of the voices visible even through their masks. "Why would you do this?" Manhattan considered the question. "Curiosity, perhaps. Your Emperor is the nearest thing to my equal I have encountered in this universe. A being who perceives time differently than those around him, who understands the weight of near omniscience. I would speak with him directly were he whole." And if you determine he cannot be saved, then I will continue my observations elsewhere. Your galaxy contains many mysteries. The entities in the Imperium. The species you call Necrons with their anti-psychic technology. The collective consciousness of the Tyranids. Each presents a novel system to understand. The voices withdrew to the far side of the chamber, conferring in rapid, urgent whispers. Manhattan waited patiently, seemingly unbothered by the continuing scrutiny of the custodian guard. After several minutes, the voices returned. The Emperor consents to your study of his condition. Under strict supervision, any attempt to harm the master of mankind will result in the full might of the Imperium being brought to bear against you. Manhattan nodded once. Understood. Though I should note that your weapons would be ineffective against me. My consciousness exists independently of my physical form. Even if you destroyed my body, I would simply reconstruct it elsewhere. Titus stepped forward. Then why consent to supervision at all? Efficiency, Manhattan replied. Cooperation requires less energy than conflict. And I am curious to observe your reactions as well. You are an interesting species. You revere knowledge, yet fear discovery. You worship a being who attempted to destroy religion. You pursue immortality, while ensuring your civilization cannot evolve. The contradictions are fascinating. With that, Manhattan was escorted from the chamber by the custodian guard, heading deeper into the Imperial Palace toward the chambers where the Mechanicum maintained the most ancient and sacred technologies keeping the Emperor alive. As they departed, none noticed the faint shimmer in reality as of heat rising from a desert floor. None except Manhattan himself, who glanced briefly at the distortion before continuing on. Far away, in the realm of impossibility known as the warp, for great consciousnesses stirred. Khorne, Sench, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, the chaos gods, entities of such vast power that solar systems died when they turned their attention toward reality. And now all four focused on a single blue humanoid walking calmly through the Imperial Palace. He is not of us, rumbled Khorne, the blood god. His voice the sound of 1 billion warriors dying in agony. Yet he is power incarnate. A delicious paradox, whispered Sench, the changer of ways, his form shifting through 1,000 shapes with each syllable. He manipulates reality without drawing on the warp. Impossible, yet occurring a challenge to all knowledge. He does not decay, groaned Nurgle, the plague father, pustulant and rotting, yet eternally vital. All things must rot, must change, must return to the cycle, but he persists. Such exquisite potential, purred Slaanesh, the prince of excess, whose beauty and horror were one and the same. A being of pure sensation, yet denying himself the pleasure of emotion. I could show him such experiences. Together, the four greatest powers in the galaxy focused their attention on Dr. Manhattan, probing the barriers between dimensions, seeking a way to touch his consciousness. For the first time in millennia, the four rivals were united in purpose. This anomaly threatened them all. A being outside their influence, immune to their corruptions, capable of altering the physical universe directly without recourse to the warp. Such a being could not be tolerated. On Terra, within a secure chamber deep beneath the Imperial Palace, Manhattan stood before a massive technological apparatus. Cables thick as a man's waist, connected to distant machinery, humming with power. Holographic projectors displayed complex anatomical schematics of the Emperor's physical form. Tech priests scurried about, checking readings and muttering binary prayers to the Omnisia. Manhattan observed silently, his white eyes absorbing every detail. Occasionally, he would gesture, and complex atomic structures would appear in the air before him. Three-dimensional models of quantum interactions that none present, save the most senior Muggos, could even begin to comprehend. Your technology is curious, Manhattan noted to Arch-Muggos Dominus Belisarius Call, who had been summoned from Mars to oversee this unprecedented event. A blend of advanced principles and ritual superstition. You understand how to use these tools, but not why they function. Call, his body more machine than flesh after 10 millennia of augmentation, clicked and whirred with mechanical indignation. The Adeptus Mechanicus preserves the wisdom of ages. We follow the ordained patterns that please the machine spirits. There are no spirits in these machines, Manhattan replied. Only physical laws and programmed responses. The distinction is important if you wish to progress. Call made the sign of the cog, warding against tech heresy. Progress is not our goal. Preservation is. And yet, Manhattan continued, examining a readout of the Golden Throne's power consumption. Preservation fails you. The systems supporting your emperor require progressively more power each century. The mechanisms degrade. Irreplaceable components fail. You are approaching a critical threshold. The chamber went silent. This was the Adeptus Mechanicus' greatest fear, spoken aloud by an outsider. The throne mechanicum, the most sacred technology in human possession, was failing. Slowly, inexorably, but with mathematical certainty. Can you perceive a solution? Call asked finally, mechanical, pride warring with desperate pragmatism. Manhattan was silent for a moment, his awareness extending through the atomic structure of the machinery before him. Following conduits and power flows toward the distant throne room itself. Perhaps first I must understand the nature of the problem more fully. Your emperor is not simply a physical being in stasis. He is a psychic nexus, a focal point for human consciousness throughout the galaxy. The emperor protects intoned call automatically. No, Manhattan corrected. Humanity protects the emperor through faith, through sacrifice, through the redirection of psychic energy. An elegant system, but ultimately unsustainable. Call raised a mechanical appendage in warning. Such talk borders on heresy even here. Truth cannot be heresy, Manhattan replied, unless your doctrines prohibit reality itself. He turned his gaze directly to Call. I will require direct access to the Golden Throne. The request hung in the air like a thunderbolt. Even in this chamber of the highest-ranked tech priests in the Imperium, such words caused physical recoil. Direct access to the Golden Throne was restricted to only a handful of individuals in the entire Imperium. The most trusted custodians, the Emperor's personal tech adepts. Certainly not an unknown entity who had appeared without warning mere hours ago. Impossible, Call stated flatly. None approach the physical form of the Emperor save those who have served for centuries and proven their loyalty beyond any doubt. Manhattan considered this. Then our cooperation ends here. I cannot diagnose what I cannot examine. Titus, who had remained at Manhattan's side throughout, stepped forward. The decision is not yours, Archmagos, nor mine. Only the Emperor himself can grant such permission. Then ask him, Manhattan said simply. Titus scowled. The Emperor's will is not so easily discerned. His communications are fragmentary, symbolic. Interpreting them requires time and specialized psychic training. Then let me speak to him directly. Manhattan raised his hand, and the blue atomic field appeared again. More complex this time, spinning faster. I can establish quantum entanglement between our consciousnesses. A direct link, bypassing physical limitations. Call's mechanical eyes whirred as focusing lenses adjusted in shock. You propose to telepathically link with the master of mankind, the most powerful psychic being humanity has ever produced. Yes. The simplicity of the answer seemed to confound the Archmagos. Before he could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. Red emergency lumens activated, bathing everything in crimson light. A junior tech priest rushed to a communication terminal, then turned to Call with panic evident despite his mechanical augmentations. Multiple breaches detected in the outer palace defenses. Archmagos chaos forces have penetrated the Helios gates. The Lion's Gate spaceport is under heavy assault. Traitor Astartes bearing the marks of all four chaos powers. Titus was already in motion, barking orders into his Vox bead. All custodian forces to battle stations. Shield companies Aquila and Delphi to the Helios gates. Dread host to the Lion's Gate. Nothing reaches the inner palace. Manhattan observed the sudden activity with the same detached interest he had shown for everything else. The entities in the Imperium have made their decision. It seems they perceive me as a threat. Call turned to Manhattan. You knew this would happen. I calculated its probability. The beings you call Chaos Gods maintain their existence through human emotion, faith, rage, desire, hope. They feed on these energies. If I were to repair your Emperor, stabilize the barriers between dimensions, their power would diminish. They cannot allow that. Titus returned, his face grim. Reports indicate the largest chaos incursion since the heresy itself. Multiple traitor primarchs confirmed present. Mordorion, Angron, Magnus, Fulgrim, all on Terra simultaneously. The impact of this news rippled through the chamber. For traitor primarchs, the Emperor's corrupted sons, now demigods of chaos, each commanding armies that had laid waste to entire sectors, all converging on Terra at once. It was unprecedented, apocalyptic. Manhattan nodded slightly. An expected development. The correlation between my arrival and this attack is not coincidental. The extra-dimensional entities are capable of limited causality manipulation. They have accelerated existing plans to exploit my presence. You speak as if this is a minor inconvenience, Titus said, anger creeping into his voice. Billions will die. Terra itself could fall. Yes, Manhattan agreed. That is one possibility. There are others. He turned to Call. Your decision regarding the Golden Throne has become time-sensitive, Archmagos. The Chaos Forces will attempt to reach me before I can potentially aid your Emperor. Logic suggests you should either grant me access immediately or eliminate me as a factor in this equation. Call's mechanical body whirred and clicked as internal cogitators processed at maximum capacity. After a moment, he reached a decision. Custodian Titus, escort our guest to the Sanctum Imperialis. May the Omnisia forgive me if this is error. Titus hesitated for only a second before nodding sharply. The outer defenses will hold for hours at minimum. We have time, but you, he pointed at Manhattan, will be destroyed at the first sign of treachery. Understood, Manhattan replied. Though, as I explained, destruction is a temporary state for me. Shall we proceed? The journey to the Sanctum Imperialis, the most sacred chamber in the Imperial Palace, where the Golden Throne itself stood, was tense. Emergency protocols had sealed many passages, forcing their small party to take circuitous routes. Distant explosions occasionally shook the walls, evidence of the battle raging above. Through it all, Manhattan maintained his placid expression, floating silently alongside the hurrying custodians and tech priests. As they approached the final security checkpoint, a massive adamantine bulkhead sealed with both technological and psychic wards. Manhattan paused. The barriers between dimensions are particularly thin here. The entities are watching us closely now. The Chaos Gods cannot penetrate this deep into the palace, Titus said confidently. The Emperor's presence prohibits it. They cannot manifest physically. No, Manhattan agreed. But their awareness extends here. And they are angry. For the first time, a hint of emotion colored Manhattan's voice. Not fear, but something close to academic interest. Fascinating. They experience emotion as both fuel and limitation. Before anyone could respond, the final bulkhead began to open with ponderous slowness. Beyond lay a corridor of pure golden light, so bright that even the enhanced eyes of the custodians had to adjust. At the far end, barely visible through the radiance, stood the largest doors any of them had ever seen. Doors that had not opened fully in 10,000 years. The Eternity Gate, whispered one of the younger tech priests in awe. The entrance to the throne room itself. As they proceeded down the corridor, Manhattan's blue form seemed to intensify, as if responding to the golden light around them. Your Emperor's psychic presence grows stronger here. A mind fragmented into countless shards, yet retaining coherence through sheer will. Remarkable. When they reached the Eternity Gate, two figures stood waiting. Titanic warriors in ornate golden armor, far surpassing even that of the custodian guard. Their faces were concealed behind stylized masks of such craftsmanship that they appeared alive. Each bore a massive halberd crackling with energy unlike any technology the Adeptus Mechanicus still possessed. The Tribune and the Captain General of the Adeptus custodians themselves. Shield Captain Titus. The Tribune acknowledged, with a voice like rolling thunder. Your presence with this being requires explanation. Titus knelt immediately. By authority of Archmagos Dominus Call, with the Emperor's implied consent through his voices. This entity may possess the knowledge to stabilize the Golden Throne. The Captain General's masked face turned toward Manhattan, studying him with eyes that had witnessed the birth of the Imperium itself. And you believe you can succeed where the greatest minds of the Mechanicum have failed for millennia? I do not know, Manhattan replied truthfully. But the probability exists. Your Emperor's condition is complex, but not incomprehensible. Matter, energy, and consciousness exist on a continuum. His state represents an interrupted transition between forms. The two lordly custodians conferred briefly in hushed tones, then turned back to the group. The outer palace defenses are failing faster than projected. The Tribune said grimly. The traitor Primarchs fight as one for the first time since the heresy. This is no ordinary assault. No, Manhattan agreed. The entities you call Chaos Gods perceive me as an existential threat. They believe I might tip the balance of power in this galaxy. They may be correct. The Captain General made a subtle gesture, and the immense Eternity Gate began to open. Then we have no choice but to proceed. May the Emperor's wisdom guide us, or destroy us if we err. As the doors parted, golden light of impossible brightness poured forth, illuminating the corridor with radiance that seemed to penetrate not just flesh and armor, but reality itself. Manhattan alone seemed unaffected, his blue form distinct against the overwhelming gold. Intriguing, he observed a psychoreactive illumination, light as both physical phenomenon and psychic expression. Your Emperor has maintained this effect even in his diminished state. They stepped through the gate into the throne room itself, a chamber so vast that battle cruisers could have maneuvered within its confines. Columns of gold and adamantine rose to heights where clouds might have formed had the atmosphere not been meticulously controlled. The walls were inscribed with microscopic text, the complete history of humanity, from ancient Terra to the present, constantly updated by servitor scribes suspended from moving platforms. And at the center of it all, the Golden Throne, a technological construct of such complexity that no living being fully understood its workings. Part life support system, part psychic amplifier, part wargate. Upon it, visible only as a distant silhouette through layers of energy fields and stasis technology, sat the withered corpse of the Emperor of mankind, dead yet alive, physical yet transcendent, the master of mankind, reduced to a husk by his 10,000-year vigilance. Manhattan approached slowly, his expression changing subtly as he absorbed the full reality of what he was seeing. Now I understand, he said quietly. Your Emperor attempted something similar to my own transformation. The transfer of consciousness from physical substrate to energy state, but the process was interrupted. He raised his hand. Blue atomic particles, swirling more rapidly, now forming complex patterns that mirrored the energy flows visible around the throne. The mechanics of the transfer were imperfect. His physical form was meant to be discarded, but instead became an anchor, a weight preventing complete transcendence. The Captain General stepped forward. Can you repair the throne? Stabilize his condition? The throne is not the problem, Manhattan replied. It is merely a tool. The Emperor's consciousness is caught between states. Part remains bound to his physical form. Part exists as pure psychic energy. Part is fragmented throughout your species. The strain of maintaining this tripartite existence is what causes the system's gradual failure. Then what is the solution? Demanded the Tribune. Manhattan was silent for a long moment, his white eyes fixed on the distant figure on the throne. There are three possibilities. First, reverse the process entirely. Return his consciousness fully to his physical form. This would require extensive cellular regeneration, but is theoretically possible. Second, complete the transition. Sever the connection to physical form, allowing full conversion to energy state. Third, maintain the current equilibrium, but with greater efficiency, reducing the psychic cost. And which do you recommend? Asked Call, his mechanical voice subdued in the presence of the Emperor. I cannot decide that, Manhattan replied. The choice has implications beyond mere physical existence. The first option would restore your Emperor as a corporeal being, but diminish his psychic influence. The second would increase his power in the warp, but remove his direct connection to humanity. The third would maintain the status quo, but extend the viable timeline from centuries to millennia. The chamber fell silent as the implications of these options sank in. Each represented a fundamental change to the Imperium's foundation. No one present had the authority to make such a choice. No one except the Emperor himself. I need to establish direct communication with your Emperor, Manhattan said, breaking the silence. To understand his wishes, the Captain General nodded grimly. Approach the throne. But know that at the first sign of harmful intent, you will face the full wrath of the Adeptus Custodes. Understood, Manhattan replied. He began to hover forward, ascending the hundreds of steps leading up to the base of the Golden Throne. As he did, the air around him began to crackle with competing energies. The Emperor's golden radiance meeting Manhattan's blue atomic aura. Halfway up the steps, Manhattan paused. The dimensional entities are making their final move. The palace defenses have been breached. The traitor Primarch's approach. As if summoned by his words, a massive explosion rocked the chamber. Even here, in the heart of the Imperial Palace, protected by layers of void shields and psychic wards. The force was enough to stagger the assembled tech priests. Only the custodians remained unmoved, their superhuman balance compensating instantly. Impossible, the Tribune whispered. Nothing could breach the inner palace so quickly. Not impossible, Manhattan corrected. Improbable. The entities have invested enormous energy in this attack, weakening the fabric of reality itself to accelerate their forces. He turned toward the Eternity Gate. They will be here in approximately 17 minutes. The Captain General activated his Vox bead. All custodian forces to the Sanctum Imperialis. The Eternity Gate must be held at all costs. He turned to Manhattan. Whatever you intend to do it quickly. We will buy you what time we can. Manhattan nodded and resumed his ascent. When he reached the base of the throne itself, he paused again, studying the complex machinery with his atomic perception. Fascinating design. Psycho-reactive materials integrated with standard technology. Warp energy channeled through physical conduits. Inefficient but functional. He raised both hands now. Blue particles swirling around them in increasingly complex patterns. I will establish contact now. The air between Manhattan and the throne shimmered as blue energy extended outward, meeting the golden radiance emanating from the Emperor. Where the two energies touched, reality itself seemed to blur. Colors beyond the human visual spectrum briefly becoming visible to all present. Manhattan's expression changed subtly. His eyes widened fractionally. I see you now, all of you. Past and present and future simultaneously. Your births, as 1,000 shamans choosing death to create something greater. Your life across human history, guiding from the shadows. The Great Crusade, the betrayal, the duel with your son, the long vigil since. The golden light pulsed in response, growing brighter, then dimming, establishing a rhythm like a heartbeat. Manhattan's blue aura began to pulse in counterpoint. Yes, I understand. The third option, then, stability without fundamental change. A conservative approach, but pragmatic given the current invasion. Another explosion, closer this time. The sounds of battle now clearly audible, even through the massive walls of the throne room. The Captain General and Tribune exchanged glances, then moved toward the Eternity Gate with their halberds ready. I will require approximately 12 minutes to implement the necessary adjustments, Manhattan said, his voice now distant, focused on his work. The process involves quantum realignment of the throne's psycho-reactive components, followed by atomic restructuring of key mechanical elements. Call stepped forward. My tech priests stand ready to assist. Thank you, but no, Manhattan replied. Your presence would only complicate the procedure. Your understanding of atomic structure is incomplete. As he spoke, multiple copies of Manhattan began to appear around the throne, each focused on a different component of the vast machine. They worked in perfect synchronization, hands manipulating matter at the subatomic level, restructuring molecules and energy pathways without physically touching anything. At the Eternity Gate, the Tribune turned to the Captain General. If he succeeds, then the Imperium continues. The Captain General finished. If he fails or betrays us, we die as we have lived in service to him on Earth. The sounds of battle grew louder. Bolter fire. The distinctive shriek of power weapons meeting in combat. The bellowed battle cries of space marines loyal and traitor. And beneath it all, a deeper sound. The sound of reality straining against incursions from the warp. Manhattan continued his work, seemingly oblivious to the approaching danger. His duplicates moved with increasing speed, making adjustments to the throne that were invisible to normal perception, but caused readings on the tech priest's instruments to fluctuate wildly. Power consumption decreasing by 7.3%, reported one adept in astonishment. Throne stability increasing by 12.8%. He is succeeding, Call said. Mechanical voice betraying rare emotion. The patterns stabilize. At that moment, the Eternity Gate shuddered under a tremendous impact. Metal screamed as something massive struck it from the other side. Again and again, rhythmic, deliberate. The adamantine surface, designed to withstand bombardment from capital ships, began to deform. They come, the Captain General said simply. Every custodian in the chamber moved to defensive positions, guardian spears and sentinel blades at the ready. Manhattan glanced briefly toward the gate. 4 minutes and 37 seconds remaining. The entities have synchronized their attack precisely with my procedure. An impressive calculation given the variables. Another tremendous blow struck the gate and a crack appeared in its center. Golden light spilled through, illuminating a massive silhouette on the other side. A figure of impossible proportions, armored in ceramite, the color of dried blood, crowned with horns that scraped the ceiling of the corridor beyond. Angron, whispered Titus, the Red Angel. Another blow, and the crack widened. Now multiple silhouettes became visible. A towering figure wreathed in a miasma of sickness and decay. Another surrounded by an aura of shifting colors and impossible geometries. A third moving with sinuous hypnotic grace, its very outline causing pain to the eyes of those who beheld it. All 4 traitor primarchs, the Tribune said grimly. The Chaos Gods have sent their greatest servants. Manhattan's duplicates continued working, seemingly unconcerned by the imminent breach. The original Manhattan spoke without turning from his task. The entities believe that stopping me is worth exposing their most valuable assets. They are correct in their assessment of the stakes, if not the outcome. With a final thunderous impact, the Eternity Gate shattered. Fragments of adamantine the size of rhino transports crashed to the floor as 4 titanic figures stepped through the breach. Angron, pre-march of the World Eaters, now a demon prince of Khorne. Mordorion, pre-march of the Death Guard, transformed into a vessel for Nurgle's pestilence. Magnus the Red, pre-march of the Thousand Suns, his form remade by Tsench and Fulgrim, pre-march of the Emperor's Children, his beauty corrupted into the perfect avatar of Slaanish's excess. Behind them came their elite warriors, World Eaters, berserkers, their armor still wet with the blood of custodians. Plague Marines surrounded by clouds of flies and decay. Rubric Marines animated dust within sealed armor. Noise Marines wielding sonic weapons that turned sound itself into a weapon. There bellowed Angron, his voice like tectonic plates grinding together. The anomaly that threatens the gods, destroy it. The custodians moved to intercept, their golden forms blurring with transhuman speed, but they were outnumbered and facing opponents of terrifying power. The Tribune and Captain General headed directly for Onron and Mordorion, while the rest of the Custodian Guard engaged the lesser troops. Manhattan's duplicates completed their final adjustments and vanished, leaving only the original standing before the throne. He turned to face the invaders, his expression still one of detached interest. "Your gods have miscalculated," he said, his calm voice somehow cutting through the cacophony of battle. "The procedure is complete." As if in response, the golden throne flared with renewed radiance. Golden light erupted from its surface, brighter than ever before, bathing the chamber in impossible illumination. The withered figure seated upon the throne remained motionless, but the psychic pressure emanating from it intensified dramatically. The effect on the chaos forces was immediate and shocking. The lesser troops collapsed, blood pouring from eyes and ears, as the Emperor's unleashed psychic might overwhelm their corrupted minds. Even the Primarchs staggered, their demonic forms rippling, as if struggling to maintain coherence in real space. "Impossible," roared Magnus, his single eye blazing with warp fire. "The anathema cannot be restored." "Not restored," Manhattan corrected. "Optimized. The existing system now operates at 93% efficiency, up from 68%. A significant improvement." Fulgrim recovered first, his serpentine lower body propelling him forward with impossible speed. In his hands he held the blade, Fireblade, a weapon that had tasted the blood of countless Imperial champions. "Die, abomination!" The demon Primarch hissed, as he thrust the blade directly through Manhattan's chest. The blade emerged from Manhattan's back, wreathed in blue energy rather than blood. Manhattan looked down at it with mild curiosity. "Interesting. Your weapon contains a psychic component designed to destroy souls. However, my consciousness is not structured like yours." With those words, Manhattan's form dissolved into blue mist flowing around Fulgrim like water. The mist reformed behind the demon Primarch, solidifying back into Manhattan's humanoid shape, the wound already closed as if it had never existed. "Your gods cannot comprehend my nature," Manhattan continued. "I am not subject to their laws or limitations. I am not of this universe." Mordorion lumbered forward, swinging his massive scythe silence. The blade passed through Manhattan as if he were made of smoke, disrupting his form momentarily before it reformed. "You cannot defeat me physically," Manhattan observed. "Perhaps you should reconsider your approach." Magnus stepped forward, his single eye glowing with eldritch power. "If physical attacks are useless, then let us try something else." The Crimson King raised his hands and reality warped around them as he channeled pure warp energy directly at Manhattan. The blue figure raised his own hand in response. Where the warp energy met his atomic field, the two forces canceled each other out in bursts of impossible light. "Your psychic abilities are formidable," Manhattan acknowledged, "but ultimately limited by the laws of your dimension. I am not." With a gesture, Manhattan created a dozen duplicates of himself. Each raised their hands, and beams of concentrated blue energy lanced out, striking each of the four Primarchs simultaneously. The beams did not damage their physical forms, but where they struck, the demonic energy animating the Primarchs visibly diminished. "I am severing your connection to the entities you call gods," Manhattan explained, "disrupting the quantum entanglement between your physical forms and their warp presence." The effect was immediate. The Primarch's demonic features began to fade. Angren's wings withered. Mortarion's pestilent aura dimmed. Magnus' ephemeral form solidified painfully. Fulgrim's perfect beauty became lopsided, asymmetrical. "What have you done?" Magnus demanded, genuine fear in his voice for the first time. "I have temporarily neutralized the extra-dimensional energy sustaining your transformed states," Manhattan replied. "You are for the moment merely transhuman rather than demonic, a reversion to your original design parameters." The custodians, seeing their opportunity, pressed their attack with renewed vigor. Without their demonic powers, the Primarchs were still formidable opponents, but no longer near invincible. The Captain General engaged Onron directly, his halberd moving faster than mortal eyes could track, drawing black blood from the Primarch's now mortal flesh. Angron howled in pain and rage, but the sound held a note of confusion. Pain was nothing new to the gladiator Primarch. But this pain was different, cleaner, physical rather than spiritual. "What manner of being are you?" he demanded of Manhattan. "I told you, I am not of this universe. Your gods derive their power from human emotion channeled through the Imperium. I have no such limitation. My power comes from the fundamental forces of reality itself." Magnus, ever the scholar, even in damnation, understood first. "He exists outside the great game," the Crimson King said in horrified realization. "Beyond the reach of the warp, a being of pure materiality, yet with powers that mimic psychic abilities." "Not for long," Mordorion growled, his voice now less sepulchral, without Nurgle's direct influence. The Death Lord raised his hand, and from his palm erupted a cloud of sickly green spores. Not a psychic attack, but a physical one, a biological weapon of terrible potency. The spores engulfed Manhattan, coating his blue form in a layer of rapidly growing mold. For the moment, it seemed the attack might succeed where others had failed. Then Manhattan's body began to glow more intensely, and the spores disintegrated, broken down at the molecular level. An interesting approach, Manhattan acknowledged, but futile. "I control my atomic structure completely. No biological agent can affect me." As the battle raged around them, Manhattan turned his attention back to the Golden Throne. The radiance had stabilized now, still brighter than before, but no longer fluctuating. "The optimization is complete. Your Emperor's condition is stable for the foreseeable future. The immediate crisis is averted." At that moment, a new psychic pressure filled the chamber. Different from the Emperor's golden radiance, colder, more focused, a lance of pure will directed at the 4 traitor Primarchs. They staggered under the assault, clutching their heads. "Retreat," Magnus commanded suddenly. "We cannot win here. Not now. Not against both of them." Fulgrim hissed in frustration, but nodded. "The Blue One has disrupted our connection to the gods. Without their power, we cannot prevail against the full might of the palace defenses." Angron alone seemed reluctant to withdraw, his blood lust overriding tactical consideration. But even the Red Angel could see the futility of their position. With Manhattan neutralizing their demonic powers and the Emperor's reinforced psychic presence bearing down upon them, victory was impossible. As suddenly as they had appeared, the Primarchs withdrew, their remaining forces falling back through the shattered Eternity Gate. The retreat was orderly despite their setback. The tactical genius that had made them such effective generals during the Great Crusade still evident. As the last of the Chaos forces disappeared, the chamber fell silent, except for the hum of the Golden Throne's machinery, now running more smoothly than it had in millennia. The custodians regrouped, tending to their wounded with grim efficiency. Of the 30 who had faced the traitor forces, only 18 remained standing, a devastating casualty rate even for the Emperor's Praetorians. Manhattan remained before the throne, gazing up at the distant figure upon it. "Your Emperor speaks to me again," he said to no one in particular. His thoughts are clearer now, more coherent. The optimization has had the expected effect. The Captain General approached, his golden armor dented and scorched, but his bearing unbowed. "What does the master of mankind say?" "He expresses gratitude and curiosity about me, about my universe, about the possibilities I represent." Manhattan paused. "He offers me sanctuary within the Imperium, a place to observe and learn." "And your response?" asked Call, his mechanical body damaged but functional. "I am inclined to accept. For now, this universe presents unique phenomena worthy of study. The interaction between physical reality and the dimension you call the warp. The technologies of the ancient species you call Necrons. The collective consciousness of the Tyranids all represent novel systems, outside my previous experience." The Captain General nodded slowly. "Then, by the Emperor's will, you shall have safe passage wherever you wish to go. But know that the forces of chaos will not cease their efforts to destroy you. What happened today was merely their first attempt." "I am aware," Manhattan replied. The entities perceive me as an existential threat. From their perspective, correctly so. My presence disrupts the equilibrium they have maintained with your emperor for 10 millennia. Will you aid us against them again, if needed? Titus asked, clutching a wound in his side where Mortarian's scythe had grazed him. Manhattan considered the question. I have no allegiance to your Imperium. Its structure is inefficient. Its doctrine restrictive. Its treatment of human life, callous by the standards of my original universe. He paused. But the alternatives in this galaxy appear worse. The complete triumph of these emotional entities would result in even greater suffering. So yes, I will intervene when it seems appropriate. The Captain General accepted this with a nod. Then we ask no more. The Emperor protects. No, Manhattan corrected again, echoing his earlier statement. Humanity protects the Emperor through sacrifice, through faith, through sheer stubborn will. It is an arrangement unique in my experience. Symbiotic yet imbalanced. Fascinating. As the chamber began to fill with reinforcements, Manhattan turned away from the throne. I will depart now. There are other aspects of this galaxy I wish to observe. Where will you go? Asked Call. First, to what you call the Eye of Terror. I wish to observe these entities in their native environment to understand their nature more fully. The statement caused visible shock among those present. The Eye of Terror was the largest warp storm in the galaxy, a region where reality and the immaterium bled together. The domain of the chaos gods themselves. No sane being would willingly venture there. That is madness, Titus said bluntly. Even with your powers, the chaos gods rule absolutely within the Eye. Perhaps, Manhattan acknowledged. But I am curious, and I suspect they are equally curious about me. A direct confrontation seems inevitable. Better to choose the time and circumstances than to wait for them to launch another attack like today's. Before anyone could object further, Manhattan's form began to shimmer with blue energy. I have created quantum entanglement with the Golden Throne systems. If the optimization begins to fail, I will know wherever I am in this galaxy. Consider it my gift to your Emperor in exchange for the novel experiences this universe has already provided. With those words, Dr. Manhattan vanished in a flash of blue light, leaving no trace of his presence save the newly optimized Golden Throne and the baffled expressions of those left behind. In the realm of impossibility that was the warp, for vast consciousnesses brooded, their greatest servants defeated, their plans disrupted, their very nature challenged by a being outside their comprehension. For the first time in millennia, the chaos gods knew uncertainty, perhaps even fear, though none would admit to such weakness. And on Terra upon the Golden Throne, the Emperor of mankind stirred imperceptibly, not awakening, not rising, but shifting ever so slightly as the burden of his eternal vigil lightened fractionally, enough that a single thought clearer than any he had managed in 10,000 years formed in his fragmentary consciousness. A new piece had entered the great game of galaxy. Neither human nor Xenos, neither warp nor materium. Something else entirely. Something that might just possibly change the inevitable course of humanity's slow extinction. Whether for better or worse remained to be seen. As Dr. Manhattan journeyed through the void between stars, his consciousness expanded to encompass entire solar systems. He observed the trillion souls of the Imperium, the vast hive fleets of the Tyranids approaching from intergalactic space, the awakening Necron tomb worlds with their anti-warp technology, the fragile Eldari clinging to the remnants of their fallen empire, the brutal pragmatism of the Orcs, all of it existing in precarious balance, all of it facing inevitable entropy. All of it now changed, however slightly, by his mere presence. A new quantum state had been introduced to the equation. The possibilities had multiplied exponentially. Dr. Manhattan allowed himself a rare moment of emotion. Not hope, not fear, but genuine curiosity about what might happen next in this strange, grim universe where gods and mortals waged eternal war, and where nothing, not even the fundamental laws of physics, was quite what it seemed.